Okay, welcome to Power of Prayer, Chapter 3. So, again, if you're just joining us, I'm going through and reading the different chapters of my book, and I'm giving you little Easter eggs in each chapter to be keeping track of, so that at the end of the book, I will run a little contest for the Easter eggs. And if you can identify the Easter egg that I ask for, then you'll be eligible for the prize. Now, the bigger news is that if I can get to 1,000 subscribers and get monetized, then I'm going to start giving away money to those of you who subscribe. So we did really good the first couple of days. Since then, we haven't gotten a whole lot of subscribers, so make sure that you share with your friends as well so we can get more subscribers. But I'm going to pick up with Chapter 3. Chapter 3. Sighing, I collapsed on the king-size bed in the hotel room and flung my arms out. What a long flight. It had been just my luck lately to be seated next to an elderly man who wouldn't stop talking and didn't seem to know how to read body language. I had thought if I stuck my nose in a book or plugged in my headphones that he might get the message I wasn't interested in a conversation. But he had kept prattling away until he had finally talked himself to sleep. Rolling over, I enjoyed the feel of the soft comforter on my skin. It wasn't a tacky flower comforter like most hotels. Instead, it was some soft material in a light blue color. The salty, fresh air wafting in the slightly open window relaxed my muscles, and the stress began to peel off my shoulders in layers. This was exactly what I had needed. I glanced up at the peach-colored walls and stifled a laugh at the picture of the ocean hanging on the wall I was facing. Though it was pretty, I could hear the real thing seeping in the window. Sitting up, I grabbed the suitcase and hefted it onto the bed, unzipping it. My current clothes lay sticky and molded to my skin from the long plane ride, and a sniff revealed they needed a wash. A pink maxi dress and matching sandals seemed appropriate for the beach, and I slipped them on after removing my other clothes. My hair was also flatter than I would have liked, but a few shakes gave it some body. I touched up my makeup and pulled the sliding glass door open. The warm night air caressed my face, much like Daniel's fingertips used to, and I breathed in a deep breath. This was perfect. I'd have to buy Tina lunch when I got back to Texas. Maybe Tina wasn't so bad after all. I slid the door shut behind me and stepped onto the cream-colored sand that appeared almost white at the base of the various palm trees dotting the landscape. The palm leaves stirred slightly with the gentle breeze, which also lifted my hair, swirling strands about my face. Blue water licked the sand and called to me like an old friend. I'll have to go swimming tomorrow. As I stepped closer to the water, I could see the colorful fish swimming back and forth in the clear, calm glass. The soft sound of music to my right caught my attention, and I turned to see a small bar surrounded by tiki torches. A handful of people sat on the few bar stools and tables, and several more stood around sipping their drinks. The glow of the light pulled at me, daring me to come and join it, and since the beach area to the left was empty, except for a few occupied lounge chairs, I accepted the invitation and set off to check out the scene at the bar. Probably 20 people, who seemed close to my age, professionals at least, hovered around the bar. An iPod speaker system sat on the bar's counter, playing soft reggae music that my head began to bob to. "What'll you have?" The voice was deep and masculine, and as I turned to find the man who owned it, a small gasp escaped my lips. Broad shoulders that had been tanned in the sun stood out against his cream tank top, and dark brown hair fell in waves to about his chin. He was probably the most handsome man I had ever seen, but it was his piercing green eyes that I couldn't seem to look away from. He stared at me expectantly, an empty glass in his hand as he waited for my order. Tequila sunrise, I stammered, as the blush climbed my cheeks. Had he heard my gasp? I tried to look away, but his gaze was a magnet drawing my eyes back to him. Okay, so I am not a big drinker, but when I was in college and I would go out, my favorite drink to get was a tequila sunrise. So that is your first Easter egg for the day, is what was my favorite drink in college when I went out. So it's not like I didn't drink it every day, but when I went out and ordered drinks, it was a tequila sunrise. Tequila, huh? His lips pulled into a smile, revealing perfectly white teeth, and my heart fluttered in my chest. It's my weakness. My lips parted, and my tongue darted across my bottom lip. I wondered how his lips would feel against mine. Apparently, he was a weakness for me as well. In that case, how about a double shot? The wink he flashed solidified the notion that he was flirting with me, but I couldn't tell whether that was because he liked me or because it was part of the job description. Sure. My heartbeat magnified in my ears, and despite his magnetic pull, I forced my attention away from the bartender and back to the crowd, hoping to hide the red on my face. Though the bartender was easily the most handsome man there, several other nice-looking gentlemen filled the area. Most appeared to be chatting with women already, but one man sat alone, tapping at his laptop and nursing a beer. Here you go. The bartender slid a colorful glass my way. I grabbed the drink, smiling at the tiny blue umbrella attached to the side, and reached for my bag. I froze as I realized I didn't have my bag or any cash on my person. My dress didn't even have pockets. Any way I can charge this to my room? I forgot my purse. No need. It's all inclusive here. He tossed another wink at me and flashed a lopsided grin. Oh, right. Thank you. I raised the glass in a mock salute and headed to an empty table. Smoothing my dress, I sat in the wicker beach chair and glanced around. Why didn't I think to at least bring a book? The answer to my question appeared a moment later as a tall man approached the table and motioned to the empty chair across from me. Mind if I sit down? I nodded once in agreement, checking him out as he folded his frame into the chair. He appeared about 30, with blonde hair and blue eyes. So, he took a sip of his beer and raised his eyebrows suggestively at me. What do you do? I fought to keep my eyes from rolling. He came across like a frat boy who hadn't quite realized he was no longer in college. But I was determined not to be judgmental and to have a good time. So I pasted a smile and answered, I'm a lawyer, here on vacation, clearing my head. Lawyer, huh? That must be interesting. He leaned across the table, bringing a whiff of alcohol with him. He had clearly had more than one beer already. Forcing another smile, I leaned back, away from his breath. That's rarely the case. TV makes it look exciting, but I do a lot of paperwork and research right now. Well, then I'd say you definitely deserve a break, huh? You have no idea, I agreed, taking a long drink of the tequila. I was not usually much of a drinker, but the alcohol felt good as it burned down my throat. My name is Owen. He stuck out a large hand, which I shook after only a moment's hesitation. His hand was smooth and manicured. He obviously did not do physical labor for his job. "I'm Callie. Nice to meet you." Owen's eyes roamed my face before beginning to slide south. Why was it that men couldn't keep their eyes focused on women's faces? "So, are you here with your boyfriend?" Images of Daniel flashed into my mind, and I squeezed my eyes shut, shaking my head to clear the treacherous face. The last thing I wanted to do on this vacation was think about Daniel. I most definitely am not. "I'm single too," he hinted, tracing a circle around the top of his glass with his index finger. "Would you like to have dinner with me tomorrow? We could meet at the hotel restaurant here." I opened my mouth to decline and then closed it. While he wasn't my normal type, it was just dinner. Besides, my normal type had ended up sleeping with my best friend. The fact that he seemed drunk already bothered me. I didn't need any more drunken trysts, but maybe it was his first night and he was just relaxing. I wasn't here to psychoanalyze people, and I'd probably be enjoying more of these drinks while I was here. Besides, if dinner turned out to be a disaster, I wouldn't have to see him again. "Sure, that sounds nice." With the words out of my mouth and unable to be recalled, I tilted back the last of my drink. Though not drunk, the jet lag combined with the alcohol created a soft buzzing in my head, and I excused myself before I ended up passing out on the table. Waves of fatigue bombarded me as I opened the sliding glass door and closed it behind me. Kicking off my sandals, I crawled into the inviting bed, not bothering to change. My teeth felt fuzzy, and I knew I should get up and brush them, but the bed had wrapped its comfort around me, and I couldn't lift my head, much less my body. "I'll brush them tomorrow," was the last thought in my head before the darkness won. Okay, so second Easter egg, and this is kind of funny, but I absolutely hate the feeling of fuzzy teeth. I cannot sleep if I don't brush my teeth at night because it just feels icky and it will literally wake me up in the middle of the night. So, Easter egg number 2, what do I most hate at night and what can I not skip? Brushing my teeth. Super bad. The sunlight peeking in my window woke me the next morning. Yawning, I stretched out my stiff muscles and did a double take at my watch. Nearly noon? I guess jet lag does mess you up. This trip was my first out of the continental United States, and I'd had no idea how tired the flight over would make me. I never slept past 8 a.m. unless I was sick or drunk. I cringed as the night with Brent blazed in my memory again. Pushing it away, I plodded out of bed and into the bathroom. After turning on the water in the tub, I slipped off my dress and stepped into the bathtub, letting the warm water energize me. When I felt thoroughly refreshed and washed, I toweled off and, wrapping the white fluffy towel like a sarong around my chest, traipsed back into the main room to pick today's outfit. I wanted something comfortable but also eye-catching, so I grabbed a green tank that brought out my eyes and a pair of shorts. After slipping them on, I ran a quick brush through my dark hair and grabbed my sunglasses. It was time to check out the rest of what the island had to offer. The hotel itself was gorgeous, but very much like other hotels I had been to. A spa, a gift shop, and a few small restaurants sat on the premises, but not much else. So I headed out of the hotel to the village outside. The sun beat down, sending small beads of sweat trickling down my back as I traversed the walkway. I needed a hat or a fan, something to keep the blazing sun off my head. As small shops straddled the quaint street, I approached one that was laden with clothing and began to search through the wares. Dresses, skirts, and tops filled the tiny shop, and a dark-skinned woman sat on a stool, eyeing me and fanning herself. My hand landed on a beautiful green, blue, and red maxi skirt that called my name, and I handed it to the lady to wrap up for me. I added a straw hat before leaving and was just about to place the hat on my head when I saw a man braiding hair a few feet ahead. I'd often pictured a braid in my hair whenever I thought of myself lounging on a beach, so I tucked the hat in the bag for now and sidled up to his stand. He was just finishing a braid on the current customer, his skilled hands deftly weaving the hair back and forth. "How much to do one small braid in the front of my hair?" I asked, pointing to the front right side. The dark man smiled at me as he wrapped a small rubber band around the bottom of the woman's braid. "For you, pretty lady, I take $10. The lady thanked him and smiled at me as she vacated the chair, and I handed over the $10 bill I had just fished from my purse. I couldn't believe I was actually letting a stranger run his fingers through my hair, but I had to admit the feeling was rather nice. "Blending in, are you?" I glanced out of the corner of my eye to see the handsome bartender from the previous night. My heart fluttered in my chest. He looked just as handsome today in cargo shorts and a green t-shirt. Yeah, I figured I should try some of the local culture. Why did I lose the ability to speak coherently around this man? "Well, Sammy here is the best braider around, so you are in good hands." He clapped a hand on the shoulder of the man and flashed another charming smile. My pulse drummed in my ears. What was it about this guy? Why did he have such an effect on me? "Are you not working at the bar today?" I hoped the question sounded nonchalant, though I feared my attraction to him was showing through. His head tilted as he regarded me, his eyes twinkling. "I don't work here. I was covering a shift last night for a friend." Something in the way he answered led me to believe there was more to that story. But as he didn't seem inclined to share, I decided not to push. "What do you do then?" I asked, finally recovering the ability to string intelligible words together. "I manage a few companies back in the States." "Are you vacationing then?" "I guess you could say that." That twinkle in his eye was so distracting, as was his uncanny ability to give vague answers to my questions. "Listen, do you want to go get some lunch after Sammy finishes your hair? I'd like to show you a fantastic local eatery." Yes! My heart flip-flopped and my pulse revved, accelerating in my chest. But I took a deep breath to regain control. "I don't even know your name." I glanced up at him, and Sammy smirked. "It's JD, and people around here can vouch for me." "I'm Callie, but I don't know people around here, so them vouching for you doesn't mean much." "He's a good guy," Sammy interjected. "See, I'm a good guy." JD smiled. "Come on." His bottom lip protruded in just the hint of a pout, and desire flickered in my veins again. I wanted to gently nibble on that protruding lip, and then I squeezed my eyes shut, stopping the tempting thoughts. What was wrong with me? "Okay, fine, but just lunch." Of course, if it turned into something more, I wasn't sure I would be upset. Sammy finished the braid and tied it off, and JD stretched out a hand to me. It was large and masculine, as Owen's had been, but there were also calluses. He had probably never had a manicure in his life. I placed my hand in his, enjoying the roughness that rubbed against my smooth skin. Tingles raced up my arms at his touch, sending another flush crawling up my neck. I lowered my eyes, afraid of what he might see in them, but as soon as I was standing, he dropped my hand. My eyes shot to his face, but he was already walking on. Ignoring the empty sensation pulsing through my hand, I hurried to catch up to him. "You aren't a vegetarian, are you?" JD asked, as we strolled past various shops. "No, I like to eat. I need the protein," I laughed, "because I work out a lot." "What do you do?" He turned into an eatery on the left side of the street. "I kickbox." Okay, so this one is probably a pretty easy Easter egg to figure out. If you've followed me at all, you know that kickboxing has been my exercise passion for the last 14 years. But Callie is kind of based off of me in some way, at least her description, although my eyes aren't green, they are hazel. But yeah, so there you go. There's your third Easter egg. My exercise passion is kickboxing. His eyes widened and a laugh escaped my lips. I was used to that reaction. Though athletic, my 5'7" frame did not scream heavy hitter. "I'm sorry," he said, holding up his hands in apology. "I don't know many women who kickbox." "I don't either," I agreed, though more women were joining my gym every day. But it's the only workout that I have continued for any length of time. I've been training for 10 years. I guess I get bored easily, but it's never the same workout, so it stays fresh. A furtive glance at his well-toned body sent another flame of heat across my face, forcing me to look away. "What about you? Do you work out?" "Mainly running and lifting, but I've been known to hit a bag now and then." Images of JD shirtless flooded my mind. I pictured the two of us in one of the small changing rooms in my gym, icing each other's wounds in between stolen kisses, or crawling into an Epsom salt bath together after a hard workout. My ears burned with heat, and I shook my head to clear it. What was wrong with me? I didn't even know him, and I had just warmed the bed of another man I didn't know. Daniel. He was the reason. His leaving me at the altar had damaged my psyche, and these lustful thoughts must be my way of regaining it. The waitress approached, and I followed her, thankful that JD appeared not to have noticed my face or crimson ears. She led us to an empty table with a bright blue and orange umbrella attached to offer shade. Several similar tables sat throughout the restaurant, each with a different colored umbrella. JD pulled out my chair, and I cocked an eyebrow at him as I sat down, unsure whether to be flattered or offended. I could pull out my own chair, but the gesture had been nice. I picked up the paper menu and wrinkled my forehead. Everything was in Spanish. I have no idea what any of this is. How am I supposed to pick something to eat? Okay, pollo is chicken. I remember that. Thank you, Miss Alvarez. So maybe I'll order something with chicken. JD scanned the menu before laying it down. Do you trust me to order for you? Narrowing my eyes at him, I considered his offer. Was he offering because he could sense I had no idea what to order? Or was he being chauvinistic and assuming I couldn't order for myself? I thought you were here on vacation. How do you know so much about the cuisine? He shrugged. I come here every year. My eyebrow inched up my forehead. He must make a lot of money to afford a trip like this every year. While I wasn't poor, most of the money I had spent the last few years had been Daniel's. Even junior partners didn't make as much money as people thought. The realization that I was going to have to cut back on my spending habits when I returned home slapped me in the face. Sure, order whatever you think will be good. I placed the menu back on the table and removed the hat that I had donned after leaving Sammy. I placed it on the empty chair next to me as JD called the waitress over and ordered. Lifting my hair off the back of my sweaty neck, I twisted it up into a roll so the cool breeze could hit the spot. With the other hand, I pushed a stray tendril behind my ear until I realized that JD was staring at me. My face flushed, and I released my hair. JD dropped his eyes and cleared his throat. It was the first time he had appeared flustered. So, are you seeing that guy from last night again? His question caught me off guard, and I leaned back in the chair and crossed my arms. It appeared I hadn't imagined his interest last night. Were you spying on me? No, just observing. I see guys like him come and go while I'm here every year. I didn't want you to get hurt. You don't even know me. Defensive walls shot up at his insinuation, and my arms pulled tighter to my chest. What do you know about how I might get hurt? JD softened his voice. I could see the sadness in your eyes last night. I sense that you are dealing with some pain, but guys like that won't make it go away. Guys like what? I didn't know why I was arguing with him. I hadn't been that attracted to Owen, but my eyes narrowed to slits anyway as I dared him to continue. You know the kind I mean. He leaned back, folding his arms across his muscular chest. Here for a week, hoping for a fling, never going to call again after that. Well, how do you know that isn't what I'm looking for? It was a challenge, and I didn't even know why I was throwing it. He considered me for a long moment. His eyes never wavered from mine. What is he looking at? Frustrated, I broke his gaze and glanced away. He leaned forward, propping his head on folded hands, still never shifting his eyes. I don't think that's really what you're looking for. I stared down at my wrists as I thought of the night with Brent again. Maybe he's right. I can't say I'm proud of that night, but who could blame me? Still, who I see is none of his business. His words spurred my need to always be right and have the last word, and I raised my head, returning his stare and almost daring him to contradict me. Well, as a matter of fact, I am seeing Owen again tonight for dinner. Though he couldn't hide the flicker of surprise that flashed across his eyes, he managed to keep his voice even. Ah, well, I am sure you can handle yourself, but do remember my advice. Before I could retort, the food arrived. A colorful mix of red, brown, green, and orange tantalized my eyes as the savory smell delighted my nose. My mouth watered, and I grabbed my fork, scooping up a mouthful. But JD's hand stopped my arm before it reached my mouth. Wait, can we pray over it first? Are you serious? I raised an eyebrow and stared at him. You pray before you eat? Of course. Don't you? Lifting my chin, I pointed my nose in the air. I don't pray at all. I don't believe in praying to a God who allows someone to experience intense pain. But you do believe in God? I stopped, unsure of how to answer his question. My forehead furrowed as I thought, did I believe in God? I don't know, I shrugged. My mom does, and when I was young, we went to church. A vague memory of entering a church, holding hands with my mother and father before they divorced, flashed across my mind. Maybe I used to. Well, I do believe in God, and I believe everything happens for a reason. I don't know what happened to you, but I do believe that God had a reason for whatever it was. My body tensed as I clenched my fork. Yeah? A reason to be stood up at the altar? JD cast his eyes down. I'm sorry, that had to be painful, but yes, even in a situation like that, I think God has a plan for you. Well, let's agree to disagree on this point. I shook his hand off my arm and brought the fork back to my mouth. Across from me, JD closed his eyes and bowed his head, but remained silent. I opened my mouth to take a bite, then sighed, put my fork down, and closed my eyes as well. Dear Lord, JD prayed, thank you for all the blessings you have bestowed upon us. Thank you for this food we are about to eat and for the hands that have prepared it. Thank you for new friendships. And Lord, please allow us to understand your reasoning regarding events that are beyond our control. Amen. Interesting prayer, I said, cocking my eyebrow at him when he opened his eyes. Are you hoping that something will be revealed to me that will change my mind about who God is? The twinkle flared again in his eyes, and his lips formed a teasing smile. I think it will, in time. How could you possibly know that? You don't even know me. Why was I even continuing this conversation? I'd heard enough religious mumbo-jumbo from my mother. I didn't need it from a stranger, too. Yet, I couldn't muster the desire to leave. Not only was I physically attracted to him, but there was something else about him that intrigued me as well. Not yet, but I know God, and even though I don't always know the way he works, I have seen people receive various truths from him, and I know he works in mysterious ways that we don't always understand at first. My gaze lingered on him a moment longer as I tried to decide if he were serious or playing me. Deciding it didn't matter for now, I returned my attention to the food and took a bite of the delicious dish, savoring the flavors that exploded in my mouth. I sneaked a glance at JD, curious if he just had good taste or if somehow he knew exactly what I liked. The rest of the meal was finished in a comfortable silence, and after lunch, JD paid for the meal and escorted me back to the hotel. Thank you for having lunch with me, he said, as we reached the front door. I wish you well on your dinner tonight and the rest of your visit here. He bowed slightly, and before I could respond, he turned and walked back the way we had come, leaving me battling confusion over his baffling behavior. Well. Okay, sorry. I was trying to stop the recording. This is actually not the end of chapter 3, but like chapter 2, it's kind of a long chapter. So we're going to stop there for tonight. This one had 3 Easter eggs. So if you were paying attention, you should have caught 3 things. Make sure that you write them down so that when we finish this book, you'll have all the Easter eggs and you'll know which one to fill in when I put that in. I will be back tomorrow with another video. Make sure to share this with your friends because, again, we need to get 1,000 subscribers in order for me to start giving money as prizes. So make sure you share, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Oh, by the way, one more thing. If you have questions for me that you would like me to answer, put them down in the comments below, and I will add them into a future video. So if there's anything that you want to know that I'm not answering along the way, feel free to ask, and I will see if I can answer it for you. All right, bye.